Today is an alert day, but we're also following a developing story out of Toronto. Emergency crews respond after a Delta plane overturns what we know so far.
A handful of snowmobile trails are finally opening up after last week's snow, but officials are urging caution following several accidents across the state.
Hundreds at the state capitol protesting the Trump administration, the message they're sharing in this extreme cold. You're watching News 3 Now at 5.
Welcome back.
Good to be back.
Good
Been battling a little bit of a cold. You might hear it in my voice, but hey, I'm here despite this wonderful weather.
You and everyone we know, it's going around, and it is bitterly cold today. Jacob is inside a wise decision with the latest on the weather. Hi, Jacob.
Yeah, temperatures are going to still be very cold the next couple of days. Alert day conditions are expected to continue through Wednesday. In fact, they're going to get worse before they get better for tomorrow morning. Looking at the alert day information, again, through Wednesday, wind chills are expected to be in the negative 20s during the morning. Taking a look at the current temperatures, 2 is the current temperature in Madison. The high has been around 5 degrees in Madison. So it has been a cold one throughout the entire day. And although winds aren't, very gusty, it doesn't take a lot of wind to create these very cold wind chills. And it has been at least a little bit breezy. So looking at the current wind chills, we are in the negative teens at this hour, and they are going to continue to plummet overnight. But despite that, we actually have seen sunshine. Here's a view from our Queen Bee Radio Sky Cam from Platteville. The sunny skies are expected to continue tomorrow and tonight, but despite that, that's going to allow temperatures to actually get even colder. These are the actual temperatures for tonight. Wind chills will be brutal. In fact, they're going to be pretty dangerous as we head into the morning tomorrow. I'll talk more in detail about just how cold it could get and how long these wind chills will last coming up a bit later.
All right, Jacob, thank you. Developing news out of Toronto's Pearson Airport. A Delta plane, flight 4819 out of Minneapolis, crash landed upside down in wintry conditions. Emergency crews quickly responded, evacuating all 80 passengers and crew, everyone alive and accounted for. Paramedics confirmed 15 were hospitalized, including a child and 2 adults in critical condition. The rest suffered minor to moderate injuries. The FAA says Canada's Transportation Safety Board will now lead the investigation.
For the first time this season, hundreds of miles of snowmobile trails are opening across Dane County. All of the trails in all regions of Dane County are open for the time being. In Dane County alone, there are over 500 miles of snowmobile trails, including Badger, Glacial Drumlin, and Military Ridge trails. A state snowmobile trail pass is required to ride on the county's trail system. You can check closures and trail conditions on the Dane County Parks website.
Fort Atkinson's fire department says it's rescued a snowmobiler who went through the ice on Koshkonong. It happened about noon Saturday when a man had been with a friend on a snowmobile. That vehicle went into the water. The friend was able to reach the shore for help. The man was rescued about a mile from shore after struggling to hold his head above water while holding onto an ice shelf. He's been since released from the hospital. Officials in Dodge County say 3 snowmobilers fell through the ice there, and they are now warning of unsafe ice conditions near Beaver Dam. It's on the northeast side of Evergreen Island. The Dodge County Sheriff's Office says residents should contact local bait shops. They actually have very good information about ice depth and hazardous areas. Of the 3 people who fell through the ice this weekend, none luckily suffered any serious injuries. We are continuing to follow the sweeping plan that Governor Evers is laying out for Wisconsin's prison system. Our Kyle Pozorski spoke with a prison reform advocate who says the plan left her asking for more.
It was the summer of 2023 when Dean Hoffman died by suicide at the Waupun Correctional Institution. His daughter Megan has been a prison reform activist ever since.
It jumped me right into it.
Over the weekend, Governor Tony Evers laid out a plan described as a domino of changes to the state's correctional facilities, including improvements and modernizations. One of the biggest changes was shut down the Green Bay Correctional Institution. But to Hoffman Cobb, it's the governor's plan for Waupun that's catching her eye.
From what I've heard is it's at a state that it can never come back from as far as fixing. Being where Waupun is located, it is clear that they don't have the power to attract staff that they need for their prison.
Under Evers' plan, Waupun, or WCI, will be transformed to a medium-security vocational village, emphasizing on workforce readiness. The governor's office says this would help achieve the goal of stabilizing the state's prison population.
There definitely needs to be that reform aspect. How are we going to make sure our prison population doesn't keep growing? This is a good step forward that we're talking about these changes There is no additional talk about the need for mental health care within these facilities, let alone just more staffing. We need more mental health care.
If included in the governor's final budget proposal, the changes to WCI would not be ready until at least 2031. In Madison, Kyle Pazorski, News 3 Now.
Kyle, thank you. Included in the plan for Waupun, the facility would temporarily shut down to demolish the existing cell halls, and the Department of Corrections would then rebuild 600 cells at a cost of more than $245 million.
Tomorrow, a big day for politics in Wisconsin. Primary voting starts tomorrow morning. Then in the evening, the governor will unveil his 2025 to 27 budget from the state capitol. For the primary tomorrow, voters across the state will be casting their ballot in a three-way race for state superintendent. Those running in the race are Jill Underly, the incumbent, Brittany Kinzer, and Jeff Wright. Through Dane County, there are several local elections, including city council positions, also in Fitchburg, Madison, and Sun Prairie. There's also a school referendum in Mauston. For more information on everything you need to know about the candidates, you can visit channel3000.com.
Student achievement in Wisconsin is still behind pre-pandemic levels. Math scores are months behind, while reading scores are a half grade lower than they were in 2019. A new report from Harvard and Stanford shows that 83% of students are in math-trailing school districts. The report says 94% of Wisconsin students are behind in reading. However, in Fond du Lac School District, scores are above pre-pandemic math scores, and they lead the state in reading growth.
The Trump administration taking more steps to downsize the federal government. This time at the FAA, the union representing the workers there said hundreds of probationary employees who maintain critical services with air traffic control are being let go. That move comes less than 3 weeks after the mid-air collision near D.C., killing 67 people. That crash highlighted shortages of air traffic controllers and problems with the agency's infrastructure. The Department of Government Efficiency said earlier this month it plans to make rapid upgrades to air traffic control systems, while the Professional Aviation Safety Specialist Union president says this move endangers public safety.
Expect to hear evening training flights in the Madison area from tomorrow through next Friday. The Department of Defense says it's running aircraft training operations that should wrap up most evenings around 7 p.m. However, officials say that some flights could be operating as late as 2 o'clock in the morning. The DoD says these operations are needed for overall readiness and that flight paths are designed to minimize noise in the community.
You're watching News 3 Now at 5, moving forward.
Welcome back. Dangerous winter weather continues to threaten much of the country with more messy weather heading to our south.
Yep, the storms that pummeled Kentucky over the weekend have now claimed 11 lives. Karen Wise there with the latest from Bowling Green.
Kentucky rescue crews have already saved at least 1,000 people stranded by floods. Parts of the state were drenched with up to 6 inches of rain.
We had warning that we were going to be flooded. We just didn't know it was going to be this extensive.
Along the Kentucky River, homeowners had a sleepless night.
I went to bed and got up every 2 hours and checked.
So me and my wife, we kind of kept guard for everybody here.
Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear said first responders have worked for days without sleep and implored residents to stay off flooded roads.
It's very important today that we continue to remind folks not to drive through standing water, not to drive around barricades. They are there for a reason.
About 300 roads across the state are flooded, just like this one in Bowling Green. Several structures in this park, like that information sign behind me, are submerged in water. This flood warning has been extended to Tuesday as Kentucky officials are still in search and recovery mode. Dangerous weather is also coming to Texas, with possibly record-breaking cold by Tuesday.
Some wind chills may be as low as 0 or even -0. After that, going into Wednesday and Thursday, there will be widespread freezing across almost the entire state of Texas.
In Chicago, the driver of this car survived after veering into freezing Lake Michigan. And back in Kentucky, the troubles are far from over. An approaching snowstorm could dump as much as 6 inches. The governor calling this one of the most serious weather events in at least a decade. Karen Hua, CBS News, Bowling Green, Kentucky.
And the National Weather Service warning of life-threatening cold in Montana, with parts of that state predicted to dip to 45 degrees below zero.
There is a troubling measles outbreak happening in Texas. Officials have confirmed 48 cases, and the CDC is reporting cases in 5 other states as well. On CBS Mornings, CBS News medical contributor Dr. Celine Gounder stressed how important it is to get vaccinated and noted symptoms that people need to be on the lookout for measles exposure. They include high fever, cough, runny nose, along with red and watery eyes. And then about 2 to 3 days after symptoms start, little white spots can form inside the mouth, and patients may develop a rash.
When you do not get the vaccine, that is when you have the risk of hospitalization and death. And in this particular outbreak, we've already seen 3 people hospitalized out of 48. That's over almost 30%.
Recent polling shows about 17% of parents have skipped or delayed a vaccine dose. That's up from about 10% just 2 years ago. Dr. Gounder says we are seeing a lot of exemptions and concerns about vaccinations that are not warranted.
The snow emergency that was put in place for Madison tonight has been canceled, but the alternate side parking rules remain in effect for some. The city wants to remind citizens they should follow all parking rules posted on street signs through the city. Alternate side parking rules are in effect for areas outside the snow emergency zone. That can be found on the City of Madison website. Jacob's here now with a complete look at your first warn forecast.
Thanks, Eric. Taking a look at the 3 things you need to know. Alert day conditions for the bitter cold will continue through Wednesday. We also are going to see dry conditions until potentially next week. And also next week, it will be a lot milder. But before then, obviously, we're going to continue to see very cold temperatures. Even after the alert day will be lifted, which is going to continue through Wednesday. Thursday and Friday still going to be cold, just not quite as cold as it will be tomorrow and Wednesday. But just pointing out, it's going to be kind of a slow increase in temperatures, and then by next week it will be a lot better. So looking at tonight, there's a cold weather advisory in effect for southern Wisconsin and an extreme cold warning in the dark blue just to the west of our area. This is tonight through Tuesday morning, but we're certainly not alone when it comes to the cold weather. A lot of the Midwest seeing extreme cold warnings. In the case of North Dakota and Minnesota, the entire state under that extreme cold warning. So a lot of areas seeing very cold temperatures, and here's a look at the wind chills for southern Wisconsin by Tuesday morning. They could get down to as low as -30 to -35. Even for the afternoon hours, it's not going to get much better. We're going to remain in the negative teens with -20s for the wind chills Wednesday morning. And by Wednesday afternoon, we may finally start to see a few locations get above that 0 level, but they're still going to drop back below 0 for Thursday morning. And then they look likely to rise above 0 for Thursday afternoon. So for the morning hours tomorrow and Wednesday, we could be talking about frostbite in as little as 20 to 30 minutes because we'll probably be in this yellow box. Thankfully, the winds aren't going to be too bad, but the actual temperatures could drop into the negative teens. So we're still going to be seeing the potential for frostbite if you are outside for a prolonged period of time. Now, taking a look at the temperatures beyond the next couple of days, it is going to get a lot better for next week. We'll have highs potentially in the 40s for a few days, so it's going to feel a lot better. And with the cold weather we're seeing right now, it's going to feel like it's the spring by the time we get to next week. Now, I do want to take a moment to talk about the snowfall. Despite the snow we've seen the last 7 days, we are still well below normal to what we normally see during the winter time. We're right around 17 inches. The average is around 33 up until this point, so that's 16 inches below average still. And looking at future track, with the cold weather, we're not going to see much in the form of snow. Really, the question is whether it will be cloudy or sunny rather than if we'll see snow or not. Maybe some snow showers Wednesday in northern Wisconsin, but in southern Wisconsin, we are expected to be dry until potentially next week, where we do have a chance of some precipitation. But temperatures will be warm enough to where it could be in the form of rain and in the form of snow. So as far as snowfall accumulation, we're not going to see much going forward. But the snow that's on the ground right now is obviously not going anywhere for the rest of this week with those temperatures. And then it'll start to melt by the time we get to next week.
Well, that'll feel like spring. You're right. 40s will feel like 70.
Yeah, it's like 50 degrees warmer than what it is right now almost.
All right, Jacob, thank you. Coming up, the longest ice skating trail in the United States is now open. We'll tell you why this experience might be worth the 8-hour drive. That's coming up after the break.
You're watching News 3 Now at 5.
Planned Parenthood of Wisconsin is expanding its services in Madison. The reproductive health care facility will now offer vasectomies at the Madison East Health Center. Planned Parenthood of Wisconsin says it's working with local doctors to provide the service 2 days a month. It comes 2 years since the provider started offering the procedure in Milwaukee. The CEO and president issued a statement with the announcement reading in part, quote, "The expansion of vasectomy services to Madison comes at a critical time when access to sexual and reproductive health care, including abortion, is increasingly out of reach. We are proud to expand vasectomy services and help ensure people have the resources they need to make decisions for their own bodies, lives, and futures." A Minnesota lodge claims to have created one of the longest ice skating trails in the U.S.
Now, Sophia Lauber shows us the new trail is a big hit.
The new trail has been drawing locals and visitors from all over the state. Luke Drinkard from Saginaw, Minnesota saw the trail on Facebook and decided he had to give it a try.
Because I wanted to learn how to ice skate, so what's better than driving 4 hours north to do that?
Cause Lindsay made an even further drive up from St. Paul to try Nordic skating for the first time.
I'll be honest, I fell over quite a bit when I was getting going. But once I got my boots tightened up, it's been an awesome loop to skate around.
Lodge owner John Fredrickson says he was inspired to make the course after seeing how many people perfect natural ice skating conditions drew to the North Woods in 2019. This is the first year they've done it on such a large scale, and so far, it's been a hit.
People are calling up and driving our front desk a little bit crazy with the calls asking if they've been cleared. But it's fun. I think people are happy to do it. It's something different that you're not getting a whole lot of other places.
But it turns out clearing 6 miles of trail is no small job.
The maintenance is kind of a nightmare.
The lodge plows and brushes trails, but doesn't add any water, so the ice is all natural. Fredrickson says the work is all worth it when he sees how much skaters are enjoying it.
I'm learning a lot about kind of how to manage the ice, and every year the ice is a little bit different. You're dealing with Mother Nature and trying to kind of work through what the lake is doing and how to maybe reroute things.
And if Mother Nature cooperates, he hopes to hold on to the title next year.
Well, if the Gunflint Lake Skating course interests you, the trip would be about 8 hours from the steps of the Capitol to Grand Marais by car. And we'll be right back. Final check of your First Warn forecast.
A Delta Airlines regional jet that crashed while landing in Toronto comes to a stop upside down.
We'll have the latest details about what happened. And our Eye on America explores the hope one drug may provide for children with autism. So why haven't you heard of it? That's tonight on the CBS Evening News.
Well, movies and donuts, that's a good combination. Donut chain Krispy Kreme is now partnering with Hulu. The donut company is offering a collection of donuts inspired by tastes of the classic cinema. They're offering a caramel popcorn donut, which has a crunch to it like real popcorn, and there's also a blue raspberry slush flavored donut, and one called the Candy Double Feature, which is layered in chocolate and small pieces of candy.
Just small amounts of sugar.
Yes.
Jacob's back. Final check of the forecast.
Yeah, it's going to continue to be cold the next couple of days. And even after the alert day lifts, which will be Wednesday, it's still going to be cold for Thursday and Friday. But then, as you can see, those temperatures are just going to continue to climb throughout the weekend. Next week is going to be a lot better. We'll see highs in the 40s a few days. And we also will see our next chance of some rain and snow. And yes, we could see a mixture as temperatures will be warm enough. So at least for this week, you know, the snow on the ground, it's not going to go anywhere, but we're also not going to see any additional snowfall. And it looks, unless we have just a wild March, it looks like we are going to be a pretty below average for the entire winter in terms of snowfall, because even after the snow last week, we're still 16 inches below what we normally see. So certainly has been a dry winter, but that does not mean it hasn't been a cold one. You know, temperatures have been up and down. As a whole, we've been pretty close to average for this winter. But yeah, we've had a few very cold days, and we're experiencing that right now.
Yeah, the snow that's out there now is keeping things cold for us, folks.
And those clear skies are helping cool the temperatures down, especially during those overnight hours. And, even with the sunshine during the day, it's not helping too much.
All right, Jacob, thank you. We're back in 30 minutes. News 3 now at 6. CBS Evening News is next.